our friend, Mike Mayock, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you, Michael. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Good to be here, Rich.
Yeah, you bet. Same here. If you mind, pop up the top 10 again of Mike Mayock. A couple of weeks ago, I went pick by pick with you. Sean Mitchell, our outstanding producer here on the Rich Eisen Show, is now calling the Mike Mayock's, the host from Michigan, tricked me into doing this mock draft. That's what he's calling it, which I take a little bit of umbrage. And these are your first 10. You got the next 10? Let's pop it up. Mike Mayock's next 10. Here it is. Barron, Golden, Zabel, Loveland, Mike Green, Kelvin Banks Jr., Pierce, Booker, Johnson, Tet McMillan, 20th. Not to get you to redo anything here, but you're sticking with it? You like these 20 as we're now 3 days before as opposed to 3 weeks before, Mike?
I do like them. You could, and you brought the point up last week. Well, with Miami, like if they're going to move a corner, why not draft a corner?
Right.
And I looked at that hard, and people might say it's too early for Gray Zabel, but I think in 3 or 4 years they'll look back and say, "Wow, he plays 2 or 3 positions and he plays them all at a high level." So there's some different play. I wanted to give a running back to Dallas and or Denver, and ended up moving ahead of that, away from that, just because of the depth of the running back class. It'll be interesting to see if Omar and Hampton or any of those other running backs go 21 to 32 in our draft today.
So then let's get to the order of business here, Mike. 3 days before the NFL draft, reviewing your previous 20 picks, Shedeur Sanders' name has yet to be called, which means the Steelers are sitting there 21st overall, sticking and picking. And do you think they would take Shedeur Sanders under this circumstance, Mike?
You tried to trick me into making that comment last week. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Shedeur Sanders.
Okay.
So apparently we're 1 for 2 in tricking, but at the end of the day, what I like about this is I do like Shedeur Sanders to Pittsburgh.
You do?
I like the head coach in Pittsburgh an awful lot. I don't think it, in my mind, should preclude an Aaron Rodgers deal. Matter of fact, I would embrace that if I was Pittsburgh. And I would love Shedeur to sit a year behind a Hall of Fame NFL quarterback. Even if Aaron doesn't want to, quote, be a mentor to anybody, that's fine. What he can pick up from this guy in a year is mind-boggling. So I'd rather not throw him to the dogs year one. I know he's mature. I know he's smart. They've got a young offensive line. They've invested some draft capital in. They've upgraded the wideout core. But I would love to see him get some time to develop. And I'm hoping at 21, there'll be a little less pressure. And I also know Mike Tomlin knows how to handle the heat. So I like that pick there a lot for them.
Okay, so Shedeur Sanders goes off the board, 21st overall. Chargers are now sitting on the clock. Who do they take?
Yeah, their needs are basically D tackle, running back, and wide receiver. And I wanted to give them Omarion Hampton because they're not dynamic at running back, despite Najee Harris. Then I looked at defensive tackle, and they're loaded with, Walter Nolan and all the Dark Harmon and these guys that are ready to start now. And I finally went, you know what? Emeka Egbuka, the wideout from Ohio State, to pair him with Ladd McConkey. And I think the draft plays right into the Chargers' needs, running back and defensive tackle. So let's go get the third wideout, who I think there's a little bit of a drop-off after, pair him with McConkey, and at the end of the day, we'll come back and get our DT and our running back.
My gosh. The strange bedfellows, huh? Jim goes and gets a Buckeye to help himself out. I know. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Now the Packers, you have them 23rd overall here taking who? Yep. What do you got there?
Yeah, I looked hard at wideout, and I think Emeka Egbuka going the pick before varies the way they're thinking through this right now. I'm not sure if Luther Burden is as consistent as you would like in the first round. So basically, I've got him taking the second defensive tackle over the fifth edge or the fourth corner or fourth wideout. So they get Derek Harmon from Oregon, who's an immediate plug-and-play starter at defensive tackle, really good against the pass. is stout against the run, and I think he starts day one for Green Bay.
Okay, so Sanders Ibuka Harmon kicks off the final 12 of the Mike Mayock draft here on the Rich Eisen Show. The Vikings sitting at 24. What happens here, Mike?
I think they're the logical choice to trade down for any team looking to get up. They only have 4 draft picks. They have the least draft capital overall of any team in the NFL. And I think, for instance, Kansas City sitting at 31 could be looking to get to 24 ahead of Houston and the Rams, because if there's a run on offensive linemen, Kansas City might want to get ahead of 2 teams with those needs. But the New York Giants are sitting there at 34. They need a quarterback. Their 3rd round draft pick is the first of the round, number 65. So I've got the New York Giants trading up from 34 to 24 and taking Jackson Dart.
Oh, wow. Whoa. Okay, that would be a nice wow moment. Why do you see the Giants and Dart as a marriage there for the Giants to give up quite the 3rd round draft choice? I know it's just a 3, but it's a significant one for this kid.
Yeah. It's the first pick in the 3rd round. It is significant. They got a playmaker in the 1st round in Abdul Carter. They need to get better. Part of me wanted to give them another positional player and just let them sit and pick in the 2nd round. But they had 2 3rd-round picks. And to be honest with you, I love the pairing of Jackson Dart in behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. And keep in mind that Wilson's on a 1-year deal. Winston's on a 2-year deal, but the guaranteed money between the 2 of them is only $15 million. Okay. So you can keep 3 quarterbacks, take advantage of the new quarterback rule on the 48-man roster on game day. And this kid can come in and think about, through his prism, what he's seeing for a year. He's got Russell Wilson towards the end of his career, more of a ball security guy, understands the game, can call the game at the line of scrimmage. And then you got the exact opposite in Jameis Winston, who can't help himself and is the biggest gunslinger in the last 15 years in the NFL. And I love this kid sitting there. He's a good athlete, not a dynamic athlete, but a good athlete, throws the ball well. Just having the ability to sit there and learn behind those 2 guys for a year and not have to play without that pressure, I think it's a great situation for him.
All right. That would be quite the moment. Deep on a Thursday night at the NFL draft, Mike Mayock walking through the final picks of how he sizes up the way things could go on Thursday night. So you're saying the Chiefs attempt to maybe knock on the Vikings door to beat the Texans and the Rams to the offensive line punch here, and in this case, they don't. So does that mean we see that run here on offensive linemen, Mike?
I think we do, and I see Houston's. And Rich, I told you a few weeks back, I did the Jets-Houston game last year. I watched a lot of tape of both teams, and Houston's offensive line really struggled, both with consistency and injuries. It wasn't very good. And to me, it's the main reason why C.J. Stroud's sophomore year was perhaps not as productive as his freshman year. So you look into all of those things. What did they do? They traded Tunsil and Kenyon Green. They added Cam Robinson and Trent Brown, who are both, at this point in their career, struggling a little bit. They're a work in progress on that offensive line. I have them taking Josh Simmons from Ohio State. I think I think there's a drop off at tackle after him. And what I love about him, remember, he had patella in week 6 a year ago. So as long as the medical is clean and their doctors are happy with him, I think they're getting extremely good value with this pick, because from an athletic perspective, he's a higher pick than 25. And I think he's got a high ceiling and a high floor as long as that injury checks out.
And now the Rams do what? 26th overall.
Yeah, I mean, O-line, wide receiver, D-back. They got a 37-year-old quarterback. I didn't love their offensive line this year. Havenstein's 33 years old, missed a lot of time the last 2 years. The interior offensive line was a work in progress. So I went with Donovan Jackson, another Buckeye. to me, is a quintessential guard prospect who had to kick out and play left tackle. So what you get with him is a guy that can plug and play guard right now and upgrade the athleticism, toughness, run and pass in your line. And he could also kick out for Havenstein if he needs to. So I love that pick for Donovan Jackson. What that does is that now gives us 7 offensive linemen off the board, 4 tackles, 3 interior. And I think there's a drop off at this point. And if anybody wanted one, they would have to get ahead and get up to Minnesota at least. But I think that probably closes the door on the first round with offensive linemen.
Okay. The Ravens, with 6 more picks to go, 27th overall. Who do they go get?
I just love them. Whether it was Ozzie or DaCosta,
Right.
They're not afraid to move up. They love to move back. But when they see the board shifting towards them favorably late in the round, they're cool with sticking. So they stick and pick a safety, Malachi Starks.
Oh, yeah.
They pair him with Kyle Hamilton. And the cool thing, the added benefit here, he might even be a better nickel than he is a safety. And if you move him to nickel, if you want, you can move Marlon Humphrey back to corner, which is his natural position. Keep in mind, they lost Brandon Stevens. So I think Malachi Starks gives them a lot of options, safety or nickel.
Yeah, we had him on the show last week, Mike. He's got Raven written all over, literally written all over him. He really does.
Yep.
Just seem to be that type of guy. And just him next to Kyle Hamilton, that's a tall order, man. That for sure.
Right.
Yep. So the Ravens 28th overall Lions. What do you have the Lions taking?
Let's not overcomplicate it. You know, everybody's talking about edge rusher. That's what it should be based on what's left on the board. Because, you've got Aiden Hutchinson, who's a speed to power, heavy-handed guy. I'd like to pair him on the opposite side with a kind of a twitchier guy with more bend, so that they could flip-flop, cause offensive tackles all kinds of problems from week to week. So I gave him Dominic Ezeraku from Boston College. He's got the best bend as an edge rusher that I've seen in years. He's twitchy. He plays longer than what he measures. I mean, he's 34.5-inch arm on a smaller body. He's tougher than people think. He can set an edge. And I think you're going to get a production out of him immediately.
Okay, so now we've got the final 4 teams here, the rich getting richer. How? Let's start with Washington. What do you think?
Yeah, just as a preface, I would think this is another potential trade down.
Okay.
When you get the draft night, Rich, they only have 5 picks and the second least draft value of all 32 teams. Keep in mind they traded away smart trades. They got Tunsil and they got the wideout from San Francisco.
Yeah, Debo.
Thank you, Debo. I wanted to say Dumbo, and I knew I was in trouble if I said that. So I think they're a potential trade down, Washington. But if they stick and pick, which in this situation I believe they would, keep in mind Dante Fowler went to Dallas. There's still good value left at the edge rusher position, which they need. They take Michael Williams, 6'5", 265, long arms. Movement skills like a ballerina, more upside than he showed at Georgia, played through injuries this past year, showing some toughness. So the reason he lasted so long is people wanted to see more production. But I think part of it was because of the injuries this year, and he's got a high ceiling.
Okay. So I'm mandated to ask here before we get to the final 3. With the Giants, in your estimation, already being the ones to strike a deal to move up to take the quarterback and Jackson Dart, Cleveland sitting 33rd overall, first team to choose on Friday night. You got Vegas 37th overall, sitting there on Friday night. You don't have New Orleans taking a quarterback in the first round. They're 40th overall on Friday night. Who would you peg, and for which quarterback to hop in with Washington there? Should Washington strike a deal? What do you think?
Rich, it brings up an interesting point, which is there's been more chatter about the middle ground of quarterbacks this year than I've ever seen. Okay, so in other words, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and then Jackson Dart became the 3 guys that are, quote, the high level, and we all know who they are. There's another group at the lower end, but the 4 guys that have generated a lot of conversation is Tyler Shuck, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, and McCord from Syracuse. And people are grinding the hell out of those kids because they're not sure whether or not all four of them may be as good as Dart or Sanders. Okay. They're all grinding these guys hard. So I think if you're Cleveland, you can stick and pick. The Milroe kid is off the chart as far as upside. He's going to need to sit for at least a year, maybe two. So, Cleveland, I think Will Howard or Shuck fit pretty good. And at New Orleans, they might be tempted by Milroe at 40 just because you put him on a field, and even if he isn't quite ready to go, his athletic ability is going to buy a lot of big plays for whoever drafts him.
Okay, final three here. The Bills, 30th overall, do what?
They've got 10 picks, 2 in the second round. Corner, wide out, D-line are the needs. Board fell really good for them also. Smart, the rich get richer. D tackle and corner. The D tackle board just hasn't been attacked yet. Everybody knows how deep it is, so they're waiting to get one. So they say, the heck with it. We're going to get the fourth corner, Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky. They re-signed Benford, the corner out of Villanova this year, but they're not really dynamic outside. This kid gives them a dynamic outside player. As long as he competes and tackles physically, he's got special ability to play at a high level.
All right, and if the board falls this way and you're saying we're out of the first-round grade offensive lineman store, they're fresh out of stock, what do the Chiefs do here?
I agonize because I think Ray, the tackle from Minnesota, has a first-round grade on my board, but there's apparently a bunch of off-the-field stuff that's been qualified by NFL teams. I think he's going to fall a little bit. So if I can't go with Ray there, they probably need defensive linemen would be next. And let's face it, they got embarrassed by the Eagles up front. I wanted to give them an offensive lineman. Brett Veach is smart. He won't reach. He'll get value. I've got him taking Shamar Stewart, the defensive end from A&M, and he had 4.5 sacks in 3 years, Rich, but might have more upside than any player in this draft. He's body beautiful. He played well at the Senior Bowl. You put him with Karlaftis, Chris Jones, Omenahu. He can play inside, outside. That would be fearsome, that group.
All right, so if you're saying that the defensive tackle board has not been fully attacked yet.
Yep.
And Howie Roseman's now on the clock, 32nd overall. He's high-fiving, cartwheeling. What's he doing right now?
Yeah.
What's he doing right now, Mike?
You read my mind. I wanted to give him a corner. Okay. And Hairston was taken at 30, which I think is probably their cutoff in my mind.
Okay.
In the first round. So I'm giving him Walter Nolan, who's one of the most gifted players in this draft. Ole Miss defensive tackle, explosive, quick, tough. He's had some off the field stuff and on the field some inconsistencies. If you put him in the Eagles defensive line room with the coaching and the other players in that room, because keep in mind, we all know they lost Milt Williams, but they got to make a decision on Jordan Davis, another first-round defensive tackle, who's more of a run defender than anything. So they replenished the stock at defensive tackle, and everybody else better watch out because Walter Nolan's coming too.
That completes Mike Mayock's mock draft, everybody. And I just find this interesting, Mike's, knowing our history together, you and I. It was 22 drafts ago that you were the one who went on NFL Network and said Aaron Rodgers is going to fall to 24 and there's going to be a big quarterback moment and the Packers are going to take him. Look where you have Jackson Dart going, 24th overall. So let's see if you called this shot. That would be pretty wild if you're right about this one in Green Bay. Here we are. That would be quite the moment. If Shedeur Sanders falls and the Steelers snag him, and then 3 picks later, the Giants say, we're going to make a trade to come back in and take Jackson Dart, and the Vikings are like, sure, we only have 4 draft choices, so we'll take some more off your hands and draft that way. That would be pretty damn big, man. That's for sure.
And Rich, you know it as well or better than I do. The intrigue, these mock drafts are fun, and they're really meant to inform and provide options for people.
Right.
But when it happens on draft night and somebody puts that card in, and you and DJ and Charles, everybody's going to just light up and have fun. So from the bottom of my heart, I hope you guys have a great time.
Oh, man. You're the best, Mike. I've loved doing this, and we'll have you on right after the draft, too, to review everybody's work. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, brother.
The one and only Mike Mayock here on the Rich Eisen Show. That was just so much fun over the last few weeks here. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.